Gosh, our channel's first real election. But how are we going to explain all the different demographics the parties will be going after in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, I don't know. If only there was a large, many-charactered franchise set in Britain with a huge internet fandom.
That'd be pretty handy.
Irish, but so are we. Not really a democracy.
There must be one thing that we could use. Let's see.
From Hogwarts?
Maybe. Dear Alex and Michael, you haven't paid your electricity bill.
Oh.
Elections Generally Halloween Special. Harry Potter and the Snap Election.
Happy Halloween, honourable friends. And here's something scary for you.
There's going to be an election before Christmas.
Which raises an obvious question. How will all your favourite characters from Warner Brothers' Wizarding World of Harry Potter vote? Well, ponder no more, Potterheads. Thanks to the magical art of demographic voter profiling, we here at Elections Generally have worked out the objectively correct answers to age-old questions like, is Ronald Weasley a Brexiteer?
Wait, speaking of age-old, since the books are set in the 90s, aren't Harry, Hermione and them not
Yes,
actually
technically
40?
that's
And
true,
wizards even
but
vote in Muggle elections?
they can do if
And
they
if
have
they
a birth
did vote,
certificate.
would they vote in the Hogwarts
Just
constituency in the
stop it, you
Highlands,
pestering
or
pedant!
would-
Avada-kedavra! With those objections dealt with, there's only one disclaimer left. When J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter series, she was a strong supporter of the Labour Party, which, for any Yanks watching, is the main party of the British left. Perhaps this is unsurprising, because when she started writing Philosopher's Stone, J.K. Rowling was a single mother living in Edinburgh, relying on the benefit system to survive.
I was 28. I was living on benefit. I was living on about £70 a week. I had no work. And to suddenly be in a position where actually I couldn't support myself, because obviously anyone who's tried to get state childcare will know that you'll be very lucky to get the kind of childcare that means you can work even part-time.
This probably accounts for the fact that all our heroes are plucky lower middle class bursary kids or hard-working public sector employees, while all our villains are some form of unflattering Tory stereotype, be it suburban or aristocratic, which are the two main flavours Tories come in. But is it as simple as all Gryffindors vote for Labour and all Slytherins vote for Conservative? Let's find out. Voter number 1, Hermione Granger. For our money, Hermione is the most overtly political of any student at Hogwarts. She's the means by which we learn about magical racism.
Call me a mudblood.
He did not.
What's a mudblood?
It means dirty blood. Mudblood's a really foul name for someone who is muggle-born, someone with non-magic parents, someone like me.
And she founded the Society for the Protection of Elvish Welfare, taking the apparently radical among wizards view that slavery is wrong. Because of all this, we're going to class her as a highly informed, active and uncompromising young voter on the British left. Because of this, she probably doesn't actually vote Labour, or at least not always. To be a party of government, Labour needs to form a large electoral coalition between different demographics. Because of this, Labour often ends up compromising on issues dear to the hearts of its core supporters. This can be seen in Tony Blair's New Labour strategy, in Ed Miliband's controls on immigration mugs, and most recently on Jeremy Corbyn's Brexit policy. Now, there'll be no prizes for guessing where Hermione stands on Brexit. After all, what does Hermione care about, if not
International magical cooperation. To make friends.
I'm with you there, Hermione. While she may have felt drawn to Labour after Corbyn was first elected leader, his ambiguity on Brexit probably has since got her feeling more like... That's why we think Hermione's more likely to vote for a smaller party, like the Greens or the Women's Equality Party. Just how big an issue are these Hermione voters for Labour? Well, traditionally, it hasn't been that big of a problem. That's because Hermiones tend to live in metropolitan areas, where Labour already has a safe hold on the seat. This is true for the original Hermione, who grew up in the constituency of Hampstead and Kilburn, currently represented by Labour's Tulik Sadiq, who won the last election with 60% of votes cast. However, at this election, the question is whether Brexit has created so many new Hermione Remainers that Labour will begin to lose hold of traditionally safe seats. We'll see. The only other question is, Hermione, are you an owl?
I'm not an owl!
Alright, didn't mean to ruffle your feathers. Voter profile number 2, Ron Weasley. Hey Ron, what do you think about Hermione choosing ideologically pure smaller parties over larger parties that actually have a chance of winning?
She needs to sort out her priorities.
Fair enough. After all, the Weasleys are natural Labour voters. As a family of 9 living on the salary of 1 civil servant, Tory austerity will have hit the Weasleys hard. Not to mention how the 2-child cap on child benefit will have hurt Molly Weasley's pocketbook. And they all have red hair. The only complicating factor is that the borough is in the East Devon constituency, where Labour usually struggle to hit even 10%. That said, given the size of the brood, this 10% could be all Weasley. However, the Weasleys might be more split on Brexit. The East Devon constituency had a slightly above average vote to leave the EU, as did the South West generally. And as a bloke, Ron is statistically more likely to have voted leave. For these reasons, and partly just for drama, we're going to classify Ron as a Labour leaver, a group that make up around a third of all Labour supporters.
I'd like to leave.
What? You can't be serious.
Let's vote on it. Those in favour?
Boris Johnson's electoral strategy this year is to get as many Ron Weasleys as possible to lend him their votes in order to get Brexit done. If they do, Labour is scuppered.
Ron, you spoiled everything!
Yet, as we've said, the Weasleys are natural Labour supporters. They've got lots of reasons to vote for Labour and only one to vote for the Conservatives, a party that they already instinctually distrust.
What's the use in being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it?
We have a very different idea about what disgraces the name of wizard, Malfoy.
What's more, as more details of Johnson's deal emerge during the election, Ron may find that Johnson's Brexit isn't the one he'd hoped for.
Look, I wanted to come back as soon as I left.
You complete hard-boiled Weasley!
Voter profile number 3, Draco Malfoy. He's a Tory. It's a children's story. It's not that complicated.
This is servant stuff.
And while we're on it, it's the same story for Professor Snape. And before someone goes commenting that he was in love with Lily the whole time, allow me to remind you that despite what you might read on Twitter, it is actually possible for Conservatives to feel love.
Obviously.
Anyway, going back to the Malfoys, we're also going to peg them as leavers.
You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort.
Whilst Britain's post-industrial towns were a key part of Vote Leave's electoral coalition, so too were leafy, well-to-do villages, towns and hamlets in southern England that distrusted European authority. In other words, Malfoy country.
That's for my father. Enjoy your ride back to London.
Voter profile number 4, Professor McGonagall. Up to now, we've only talked about characters from England, but north of the border, there's a third dimension to all of this, Scottish independence, primarily sought by the Scottish National Party. Now, most Scots over the age of 55 oppose Scottish independence.
Oh, thank you for that assessment.
As do those whose jobs are particularly connected to the rest of the UK. As Ald Minerva fits both of these classes, we're going to view her as a Scottish unionist, though which unionist party in Scotland she actually votes for is less clear. That said, in her younger days, she did have some surprisingly right-wing views.
Benito Mussolini, Il Duce, Italy's leader supreme. A Roman worthy of his heritage, the greatest Roman of them all.
Yikes, Minerva. So, are there any Scots in Hogwarts who support Scottish independence? What about you, Cho? What do you think?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I said, do you support independence for Scotland?
Yes.
Makes sense. both because Cho is younger and because she's from Glasgow, one of the few cities to actually vote for independence in the 2014 referendum. Many Scots were deterred from voting for independence by the thought of Scotland losing its place in the EU. Now it feels like English politicians are vindictively taking Scotland out anyway. Many in Scotland feel a little betrayed, and the SNP is again pushing for another referendum, or Indie Ref 2 to use the slang. If there's another minority government, SNP MPs could hold the balance of power. Maybe this will be enough to stop Westminster politicians from acting like
a babbling, bumbling band of baboons.
Voter profile number 5. Albus Dumbledore. An eccentric beardy patrician wearing half-moon spectacles? Come on, Albus Dumbledore is a Liberal. That is, not a Lib Dem, but the Liberal Party that preceded it.
Do you know why I admire you, Newt? You do not seek power or popularity.
The Liberals, like their heirs the Lib Dems, loved Europe and the European project. Now, I suppose technically Dumbledore wouldn't have been here to see the Brexit referendum, but had he been, there's no doubt in our minds how the old geezer would have voted.
While we may come from different places and speak in different tongues, our hearts beat as one.
Alas.
Alas indeed, Albus. Voter profile number 6. Remus Lupin. A teacher from a persecuted minority who grew up in Yorkshire, Professor Lupin is ticking a lot of Labour boxes. And considering how loyal and stubborn he is, he's probably pretty tribal about it too.
It is the quality of one's convictions that determines success, not the number of followers.
Who said that?
Me.
That was a party political broadcast by the Labour Party.
That said, the election this year is on Thursday the 12th of December, which just so happens to be a full moon. That means how Lupin votes probably depends on what time he goes to the polling station, as werewolves are known to be notoriously pro-free markets in their wolf form.
No.
Dog eat dog and all that. How else might the timing of the election affect its outcome? Well, conventional wisdom is that winter elections drive down turnout, especially further north, where it's darker earlier. Yet friendly BBC Elections prediction goblin John Curtis says that lower turnout is unlikely to be a factor in this December election because of how animated the electorate is, because of the difference between the two main parties, and because we've got lights and stuff. Voter profile number 7. Rubeus Hagrid. Now, call us partisan, but we have a hard time picturing Hagrid voting Tory.
There's some wizards, like the Malfoy family, who think they're better than everyone else.
That's horrible.
And it's Codswallop to boot.
That said, he's not what you'd call a typical Labour supporter either. Hagrid is nothing if not rural. And the Labour Party, with its urban industrial origin, has never had massive support in the countryside. So we think Hagrid is a Lib Dem. Yet we could also see him voting for Brexit, as many in the countryside did.
Better out than in.
Both sides of the Brexit referendum indulged in scaremongering, but I think it's fair to say that the Leave side was better at it. So it's not that hard to imagine Hagrid being convinced that leaving the EU was the best way of protecting the things and people he loves.
Good God, man, you're not still on about that bloody dragon, are you?
Yeah, but what if you don't like Romania?
On the other hand, he does have a European partner whose visa situation would be complicated by Brexit. Ultimately, we think Hagrid is where most of the country is. Conflicted, wanting what's best, and really just wishing the whole thing was over. I'm afraid the big guy will probably have to wait a little while longer at least.
Yeah, I reckon that too.
Voter profile number 8. Lord Voldemort. As a member of the House of Lords, Lord Voldemort doesn't vote in general elections. Voter profile number 9. Harry Potter. Mr. Eponymous himself, Harry Potter. Now, his surviving relatives are easier to place than the man himself is. The Dursleys are a pretty derogatory caricature of Little Englanders, and that's us saying that.
Justice.
The Dursleys deliberately satirise the social mores of a type of English conservatism that Rowling loathes.
Caveat Smeltonia, proudest moment of my life.
Will I have to wear that too?
Don't be so stupid. You're going to go to the state school where you belong.
As a result, the Dursleys are always going to vote for the Tories, unless of course they're tempted by Nigel Farage's Brexit party. This is reflected in their constituency. Thanks to the sterling detective work of Nick the Hermit on the Harry Potter Lexicon website in 2003, we can use the fact the Dursleys live in Surrey, near a motorway, and within walking distance of a railway station that leads directly to Paddington, to conclude with fairly high degree of certainty that they live in the appropriately named Spellthorne constituency, on a comfy majority of 13,000 votes. But surely Harry would never vote the same way as the Dursleys. But then, he does have all that inherited wealth to think about.
Didn't think your mum and dad would leave you with nothing though, did you?
Wait a second. Adopted? Wears glasses? Loathed by teachers? Merlin's beard. Harry Potter as Michael Gove. But before we judge anyone for how they vote, be them fictional or real and all, let us remember the wise words of Sirius Black.
The world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters. We've all got both light and dark inside us.
Though the house that big in London, Sirius is definitely a flipping Tory.
While we're at this, should we sort the Prime Ministers into their Hogwarts houses?
Wait, didn't I kill you?
Yeah, but that's Halloween for you. Besides, I think reaching 1,000 subscribers is my unfinished business.
Alright, I'll enchant the hat.
Rip off the Muppetus. Ah, I am the Sorting Hat. I judge not political position, but temperament and disposition. Gryffindor! Sorry about that. Clement Attlee, a virtuous man. What's this limerick he's written about himself? There were few who thought him a starter, many who thought themselves smarter, but he ended PM, CH and OM, an Earl and a Knight of the Garter? Slytherin House! Margaret Thatcher. You would do well in Slytherin. Cruel, cunning, milk-snatching.
The lady's not for Slytherin.
No? Well, I suppose it does take a great deal of courage to become the first female Prime Minister. Gryffindor! Hufflepuff. Obviously Slytherin. Gordon Brown, the only Prime Minister to complete a PhD. Ravenclaw. Too easy, Slytherin. Racist Hufflepuff. Boris Johnson. Well, you're not brave, you're certainly not loyal, but you are ambitious. Yet, you're only where you are because people seem to think you're funny. Reluctantly Ravenclaw.
Man, why does the Sorting Hat sound so much like Michael's Churchill voice?
Happy Halloween!